Hello, I'm Riley, and this is the Diegetic Advancement Podcast. Okay, I'm just going to be interrupting my regular scheduling to bring you a couple of call-ins. I've been sitting on them for a little while now, and they're not related to the next few shows, which I also don't think I'll have time to add the recordings to. So I'm just going to put them here. In addition, I am going through the orders for turn 2 of my wargame, and I thought I'd just record a little bit of a snippet of me going through that. Just thought that may be enlightening for anyone who's following along. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into the wargame, and then I'll pick up with some calls. Okay, I thought I'd record a little bit of my process of mapping out everyone's movements. So I've got everyone's orders and their configuration of their forces. I've just opened up a Google Docs and loaded those in. And then I convert their orders, though some of them gives them to me in this format anyway, with sort of where they're starting and then where they move to and any actions they take, and then where they move to next, any actions they take. So for example, it'll be a hex number, then another hex number, harvest to the next number, harvest to the next number, harvest, and then return. And what I do is I just go down the list and I map out everyone's first move, so from their gate to the first hex that they want to go to. And then I just go, once I've done everyone's first move, I go through and sort of take the person who's still earliest in time and map out their next move. And so I was about halfway through. I've got some people on move 13 and some on 7. So I'm just going to pick off on 7. So I've got, I'm going to keep this anonymous, so it's masked, so I don't give out hex numbers and people. So you can't attack them at the next and final turn. But I've got a group here who's just finished harvesting, and they are moving from here to there. And I've just got the map that I provide the players, which is this hex map, printed out, and I just draw the movement paths and count. So 7, 8, 9, and 10 to get to there, and they're going to start harvesting. So then I just write underneath their thing, the turn, I say 10, arrive at whatever the hex number is. And next we've got a people on turn 8. There's going to be an attempt to evade here. I've got a small force clashing with a large force, and the orders they've given me are to avoid conflicts where possible. So that's what I'm going to do. Give me one moment. I'll just pull up the OD&D rules for evasion, and I'll be back. Okay, I've pulled up the rules here, and firstly I need to roll for surprise. So firstly, for the first party who's trying to evade, okay, they are surprised, and then the party that is not trying to evade effectively, also surprised. Okay, so they just don't notice each other in that case. Is how I'm going to rule that. These hexes do represent a fairly large area, so that's just that. And so effectively we can just continue on with that. So again, that they come into contact at 8, but they can continue on unless they're going to the same place. No, he is going to there. Okay. So that was turn 8, 9, 10, 11. 10, 11. And again, I'm just going to write that in. 11, arrive at there, and I will do the same thing for that group. It's going to be 9 on there. Cool. There's a potential conflict here, so I need to go back. I've already mapped out the movement of one group, and I've just had lines across, so I just want to double check where they're at. So come down over here, and they arrive there on turn 11, and so does this. So we have another case of two forces meeting. I'm just going to leave that at the minute, and I will continue through the other groups, just a couple of turns, and then I'll come back to see what I need to do to resolve that. That is kind of it for how I play these out. So I don't know if that was useful or even worth listening to, or if it made sense, but that's where I'll leave it. Okay, jumping back in now with the hindsight of having played out or mapped out all the moves. There is only a single encounter. There was that encounter that we avoided in my recordings, but there is a large battle which is going to take place, which will decide the fate of two of our players' expeditions. So look forward to hearing about that in my regular show, which will come out on Saturday at my regular time. Anyway, going to jump into some calls. I've got calls from Daniel, Jason, and Sam. So I'm going to jump in to Daniel first from Bandits Keep.
Hey Riley, Daniel from Bandits Keep calling in. Really enjoying the show. So I'm no expert in wargaming. I'm kind of just dabbling in it myself. So, of course, now I want to get that magazine. I'm too cheap to invest the $10 to find it on eBay, so I'll wait till you read it. But Sam's got me interested in that. But I do have a couple of books that I've used that I think are okay. So first time, this one doesn't exactly answer your question. It's called The Solo Wargaming Guide by William Sylvesters, or Sylvesters maybe. Precise Media is the company. This is, I think I get this on Amazon. It's about obviously solo wargaming. It's got a lot of information in it, but what it does have here that I've used is if you don't have, which I'm going to talk about in a second with other books, if you don't have like a map of where people should be in terrain and stuff, this gives you some ideas of how you can randomize that. Like you lay down like playing cards to set, and then some of them represent fields versus trees versus whatever. And I've used that quite a bit with my chainmail stuff just to give myself some space, right? Because chainmail tells you that each side can like lay down terrain, but like how do you do that, right? If you're playing by yourself. The other books that I have that I think are useful, 1 Hour War Games by Neil Thomas. This one you probably wouldn't necessarily use the mechanics, but in the back there's something like 30 maybe scenarios that give you like ideas like let me look at the first one. Scenario 1, pitched battle. That's just standing off against each other. Scenario 2, pitched battle 2. That one has some rivers and roads and stuff. Scenario 3, control the river. It's got some bridges and stuff. And then scenario 4, take the high ground. So basically it gives each side goals and it gives you an idea of where to put the terrain. And it's a pretty good book overall if you're interested in wargaming, I think, because it's something that you can play. Again, it's 1 hour war games. It's meant to play in really small spaces, very simply. And I've seen some videos of people playing this system online, so if you're interested in the system. But just for the scenarios, I think this could be useful. Now, another one that I have is called 1 Hour Skirmish Games. Skirmish War Games. 1 Hour Skirmish War Games. This one's by John Lambershed. This uses a completely different mechanic. It uses playing cards, I believe. I've only read part of this one. This is organized a little differently. Basically, it goes through different eras, and then in each of the different eras, it gives you one scenario. Whereas 1 Hour War Games gives you all the eras and how you'd run them, and then the back there's a bunch of scenarios. So it's a little different. I would say maybe the skirmish game fits more for the number of figures that you're going to be using, but maybe the scenarios, I can't say one way or not if the scenarios are great. I just had kind of flipped through and looked at the pictures. I hadn't read this book, top to bottom. So if you were just going to get one of the ones I recommended of those two, I'd get 1 Hour War Games if you're just looking for maps. And Solo Wargamer is good just anyways. So it's a nice book to pick up if you're just picking up books and you don't have that one. Anyways, great show. Really enjoying it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for the call, Daniel. The magazine, I briefly reviewed that last episode. Hopefully, you got some insight from that. Uh, Probably not worth the purchase just for the article. Just it's short. It doesn't really give you much. It's an interesting read, but you can probably find similar stuff online. Um, the rest of the book's pretty cool, though. It's got a bunch of articles on various different historic wargaming, World War II, Napoleonic ancients, lots of cool photos and things like that. So as a bit of history, it's cool and relatively cheap. As for your recommendations, I have the Solo Wargames Guide, though I haven't read it yet. Heard good reviews, so I'll move that up my list. And the 1 Hour Wargame book, I've heard a little bit about that as well, and I think it's definitely something I should pick up. Really only have time for pretty short games, and sounds like it's right up my alley. The skirmish specific book also sounds interesting, though I'm not really interested in a bunch of the different historic eras, so I'm not sure how much value I'd get out of that. Anyway, thank you for the call, Daniel, and the recommendations. And now we'll take it on to Jason. Okay, no call from Jason actually. I just listened to it. It was from a little while ago, and I had listened to it when he sent it in, but it's been a while since then and recording. He basically called in to mention the Old West skirmish games that I had mentioned in a few episodes ago, I think. Is a It's not a reprinting of the original 1970s rules. It's a updated version, which I was aware of, and that's what he notes in the call. But I was not clear when I brought that up. So, if I had just a minor correction to that episode. I've skimmed through it. Jason says he's got the copy as well, and it was quite interesting. I've skimmed through it, and there's some cool stuff in there. Don't know if I'll talk about it on the show, but thank you for the call. Jason does have a second call, but that is actually directly related to my previous episode, so I'm going to play that next episode. All right, I've got a series of calls now from Sam, mainly about the Matrix gaming that I discussed in the previous episode. So I'll let them play out.
Hey Riley, I recommended the matrix system to add a bit more depth to your play. It might provide a more interesting narrative because you're running what you're calling a narrative war game. My original criticism was that the plot seemed contrived and not interesting. And one of the great things about RPGs is is it comes out of human creativity, out of humans interacting with each other, and and creating a completely unique situation or unexpected outcomes. So what you want to do, in my opinion, is use the matrix system behind the scenes as your campaign engine, with players coming up with you know stuff you may have never expected, never predicted, putting forward these arguments. You've got the world locked down. You would ideally have a map. A map is really key, I think, and the article goes into that. Um, and even like a fantasy world you like behind the scenes with all the moving parts. What the players would do is interact in that world in a much deeper way than maybe they are now. So you noted that the article is abstract, but I think the point you're missing is that and the article brings it up, is you can always choose to tactically fight out any battles emerging from the narrative. So you don't have to work out every tactical situation using matrix gaming. That can be just used to get you to the battle and explain why the battle's happening, instead of, oh, we need this MacGuffin, you need this MacGuffin, so we're fighting over it. It'd be much more interesting to have a deeper world, behind it, where you're fighting for all kinds of reasons. And anyway, that's why I recommended it. I'm glad you found it interesting anyway, even if you're not going to use it. So yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. I think the way you should do it is you should use matrix gaming and a map for your campaign and your storyline. And whenever two players meet up in a confrontation, you should use whatever tactical system you're using. I think you're using chainmail, right? So you should switch to chainmail for that. The result of that battle goes into the world, goes into the story. The actual part I'm talking about is page 44, under battle resolution. At the end of that paragraph, it says some players may even wish to transfer engagements generated during a matrix game campaign to the tabletop, where they will be fought with armies of 15mm or 25mm figures. So that, I think, those some players would include you, where you might be doing, maybe not on a tabletop, but playing out a tactical war game using chainmail.
Okay, thank you again for the call, Sam. Yeah, reading the article and thinking on it, the metric system seems really good, and I see your points for the sort of benefits for it. I think it would create a deeper narrative. The issue or the clash with my current system is that I'm really running the whole thing solo. Yeah, I've got other players, but I'm kind of using them as they're kind of acting as a randomizer in place of dice or cards. So really just creating like semi-random but intelligent movement. Um, Using the matrix system instead would require a deeper investment from the players. You know, they'd have to understand a lot more about the fiction, their forces, and what's going on on a smaller scale. See the benefits of that, but yeah, that's a little bit of clash of what I've aimed for in this one, in this game. I'm glad that you've shared it with me, because at the end of this experiment, I'll be going back to the drawing board and taking sort of what I've learned from play and discussions here and trying to come up with something better. So maybe we'll see some Matrix gaming inspiration in the future. As for the system being abstract and, you know, sort of being able to zoom in, thank you for calling that out specifically. I did briefly mention it in the episode, but all I said was the author had some advice on resolving battles and a couple of other sort of headings in the article, but did not go into depth, and so you know, kind of missed the part where you can go in and play tactical battles. Though, you know, it's nice to have an abstract system for handling some battles. You know, there's some things that are just not interesting, and there's no need to dive in. So, you know, it's nice to be able to juggle between two systems. As jumping back to the abstract comment, you don't really mention it in your call other than to point out the possibility of jumping into a tactical system. The thing that I brought that up for, though, was because it's abstract, I feel like you need a shared understanding of the world and fiction to be able to play effectively. Or at least that's what it seems like to me, obviously without any play experience. So for historical gaming, that sounds like it'd be simpler than fantasy, and perhaps that's why the author noted it was seeing use and is popular for historical games, but they hadn't seen it for fantasy games. Certainly not an obstacle that you couldn't overcome, but an interesting observation. So, yes, I'll leave it there. Thank you again for the calls and recommendations, and thank you everyone for calling in and for listening. Details for our callers will be in the show notes, and I will talk to you soon. If anyone is listening, I'd love to hear your feedback. You can reach me via Spotify, SpeakPipe, Discord, or email. Details, along with everything I've talked about today, are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.